Hello there, welcome to another Fort Triumph episode with Ungainly Titan, and in this particular episode I want to discuss something new that has come up in recent developments well they've tried it out before. I think they trialed it several months ago, but it didn't go very far at the time, and I certainly didn't see the point in it at the time of the way it was done. And that is the 3 action points per round. In general, I'm not going to talk a lot about 0.11.1. It's coming along nicely. It's very nicely polished. I think at this stage, if you haven't played with Fort Triumph before now, you're getting into the point where you're getting something that's very close to the final product. So there is something to be said for waiting to the final product and holding off the whole story experience until the final product arrives. But meanwhile, if you have been following Fort Triumph closely and you're aware of the plot and the story and so what, and you're interested in the mechanics of the game or more interested in areas like that, then the new development of the 3 action point round is actually pretty significant, because they've made other changes to make the 3 action point round mean something different to what was there previously. So what was there previously? What was there previously was a 2 action point round. But it was 2 action points where essentially you could spend both action points on movement and you got to do nothing else. You could spend 1 action point on movement and you could then attack, or you could attack. Essentially, all the attack options, kicking, and physics options, kicking, attacking, spells, archery tricks and stuff like that, they all took all your remaining action points, was essentially the way they worked. And you had stuff like slash and dash, which effectively allowed the savage to move without having an action point. So they could move, attack, have all their action points consumed, and if they had slash and dash power, they could then click on it and move and attack again. Now all of that's going to work differently with the 3 action point round. What happens now is that most of the attack powers that previously consumed all your action points, as you can see here in these examples in the fights, if you just watch them closely, consume 2 action points. So bracing, attacking, kicking, archery, tricks, the attack spells that cost traditionally, so the magic missile, the basic magic missile, the whirlwind, all of those things cost 2 action points. Stuff like the fire spell that is cast centered on the caster. There was a defensive one that used to cost only 1 action point. That still only costs 1 action point. So this creates some interesting tactical combinations. It also means that action potion bottles are a lot more significant than they used to be, because essentially prior to this they only give you extra movement. Because attacks consumed all your actions, if you had 3 action points remaining and you made an attack, that's it, you use 3 action points. Tough. If you had 2 action points remaining and you made an attack, it was the same thing. So what it did was it just allowed you to catch up with enemies that were running away, like archers and units like that tended to run away, go into deep cover and go into overwatch from a distance. And this is now changed. So now you can do stuff like brace and move. So if, for instance, you have loads of skeleton archers that are Overwatch or Air Blasters or something like that are quite powerful, you can go into brace to reduce the damage you take from them. You can move, draw all the Overwatch fire, and then the more fragile characters can run through the area, because the ones that can't brace, for instance, and things like that. So it's made that more flexible. So you can move and attack. You can brace and attack, or brace and move. If you have 4 action points, for instance, you could attack twice, which makes the paladins one of the first level powers, the first shall we say, tier of powers that the paladin can gain is a power that allows the paladin to basically transfer an action point to another character. That power now is a lot more useful and has a lot more utility, because you can transfer the power to another character, and for instance the Savage, Bloodlust, will allow it to gain an action point when it kills someone. So they could have an action point left over. They could take the transfer of power from the Paladin. They have 2 action points, which would allow them to make an attack, but they might want a third one because they want to move, and then they can do slash and dash, which gives them a 3rd action point, which they could then use to move and attack. That sort of thing. So, yeah, the tactical options and the tactical combinations that result out of this is far more flexible and far richer than the previous way of doing it. Because in the previous way of doing it, as soon as you made an attack, all your remaining action points were consumed. And it is very distinct from the XCOM way of doing it. And in some ways, I think it's better for a game with a lot more melee combat. The thing about XCOM is that it wasn't as restrictive in XCOM because everybody had ranged combat options. Everybody could go into Overwatch, for instance. So you could set up ambushes in XCOM in a way that didn't require the use of physics, or didn't require some of the things you need to do here. So I think the 2 action points for attack, the 3 action point situation just makes a lot more sense and a lot more tactically flexible. And I can do stuff like that. So I can use the human ability to lift over greater distances than just immediately adjacent to me, to clear up my zone of control so that I can then shoot the last remaining critter on the enemy team. Now I want to bring your attention to the guild power of tactics. I used to consider this to be pretty much useless. In the 2 action point scenario, or even in the 3 action point scenario where all your action points were consumed by attacks, I thought that tactics was pretty much a useless power. About the only advantage would have been if you had a high-powered party and you were up against annoying things, archers and spitting spiders and stuff like that, who tend, if you can't make contact with them at the first turn, run away, scatter to the 4 corners of the map and start sniping at you from long range. To be real, it's not so much that they're a threat, it's just a pain in the ass. That the extra movement to get into contact, lock some of these guys down and kill them in one spot while they're clumped together was a bit of an advantage, but probably not worth 300 Bitcoins and 7 magic points, particularly the 7 magic points. There are better things that I could do with 7 magic points. However, now that you have transfer of action points that's meaningful, and you have a 3 action point economy where attacks mostly cost 2 action points, then tactics all of a sudden becomes a lot more useful. Because you can do stuff like, for instance, the Paladin could move up, brace, have an action point remaining. The Savage could move up, make an attack, trigger slash and dash, get an action point from the Paladin, and have another move and attack. Or a second attack or something like that. That sort of thing suddenly becomes viable and is far more viable than and very, very, effective, because you can actually lock down, stun an enormous amount of the opposition team before they even get to react. If you're clever with your placements. Or, you could brace, move and attack, something like that, with enough action points. So it takes 5 action points. You brace, you move the Savage in. You move them adjacent to somebody. You have an extra action point from the paladin, you pass it on to the savage, and then they make an attack at the end of their turn. Something you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So that makes it worth getting. In a way that I think it really wasn't prior to this. I just thought it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the magical cost. In particular, there were other things like extra party members or extra inventory slots, or even buy a wizard as a creature or buy a champion, both of which cost magic points that might actually be a more effective spend of your magic points than buying tactics. Now I think tactics is something I would probably buy. Maybe not. I wouldn't buy it the first thing or the second thing, but I'd certainly consider it as my third purchase if I thought I had enough magic. Usually, I would like the option of buying an extra hero, a fifth hero, at some point. So I'd like to have enough magic left over for that, or I'd like to buy. Ideally, I'd like to buy at least one extra party slot, or so that I could put an extra hero on the party. But I don't do those things early. There's no need for them early in the game. They're a kind of thing that I do in a late game scenario. But if I thought that I'd have the magic spare at the end, that I would be able to purchase the four player slot on the party, or what was the other thing I mentioned? The extra hero. And that I had the magic spare, then tactics is almost certainly something I would buy under those circumstances, once I was confident that I could do that, because the flexibility in the first round of being able to make a two-round move, or to be able to something like brace, move, or even brace, move, and attack. If you have a paladin present, for instance, or you give powers to the ranger, having the ranger act twice in a turn is actually very powerful as well, especially if you have a ranger with push, pull, free shot, or whatever it's called, the one that doesn't cost any action points. That's a pretty powerful combination as well. So I do want to. That's why another reason to draw your attention to the change. A lot of stuff has opened up, possibly even stuff that I have not yet spotted or realized for myself, that has opened up just by that simple change in the action points, the way the action points work. The fact that an attack doesn't expend all your remaining action points. You have action points remaining, and therefore you have options. It also makes potions worthwhile. They're far more valuable, and they're far more valuable to the melee characters than they were heretofore. I mean, generally I often equip potions to creatures, or to the support, the ranger and the mage, because of their utility actions. The fact that you can trigger their utility actions with an extra action point was very useful. So if you had, let's say, the mage making an attack, a move, an attack, and a telekinesis distant lift, that was actually quite powerful. And you could have done that with a potion before, but now you can do it sort of natively without having to have had or have found potions to do it, to allow you to trigger that kind of a combination. Now I'm going to skip out of this fight, and I'm going to show you another one. Relatively high level party, not maxed out or anything, but they're up against a 5 trolls? 5 or 6 5 trolls that I can see so far anyway. And this would have been a fight that I normally wouldn't have tackled at this stage of the game with this level of a party. I think my Savage is a recently recruited hero, and the other two are a bit more experienced. But the Paladin doesn't have the heal skill, for instance, and I don't think I would have in the old 2 action point paradigm. I don't think I'd have tried this fight. So the paladin has come up. We have the power to basically blind creatures that we hit, because we've picked up a magic item that allows us to do this. And then I've managed to get a second kick in with the savage in order to stun at least one of the trolls. And now I'm going to attempt to stun some more trolls with the ranger. I have managed to do so, and I still have an action point spare. So the paladin's going to transfer an action point to Ivy Dogbane, to the ranger, and without moving her, we're going to bounce another troll off of a barrel and get another stun. And because the first troll is blinded, he's missed the savage, and the last guy just doesn't have the movement to get into combat without and to generate actually to actually hit somebody. So the paladin kicks the 3 trolls, now stuns 2, and 2 of them are blinded. And Solara still has an action point remaining. Now she can't give away this action point, so it's of less utility, I think, this time around. And I spent a bit of time now trying to figure out, how do I, should we say, stun as many trolls remaining as possible, or at least get this thing down so that I don't lose a hero under the circumstances. So I used Solara's action point there to move another character into the row, and I'm going to use the free attack on that troll, and then I'm going to use the main attack. So I'm very low on hit points, and he is within the human lift radius. So then I'm going to trigger Solara's attack of opportunity, and that just takes that troll completely out of the picture. And Solara gets her level up. And Cerylea has yet to move. So Solara is just getting her heal action now. Cerylea is yet to move, so I still have things I can do, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stun as many trolls as I can. So at least I have 3 of them stunned, so there's only one of them able to act. And he attacks Cerylea, but takes the hit back in return. And the remaining 4 trolls move. Right, so it's my turn. That I've gotten off lightly. I mean, I'm, third turn? And we've only 1 character's taken damage from what was originally a 5 troll grouping. So I thought I've done pretty okay. Solara kicks, triggers the attack of opportunity from the savage. The savage has managed to level up, so I now get my slash and dash. This could be important, although it might not be. Depends on how things go. And now I am, what do I do next? So I have 2 characters to act. Ivy doesn't have, she's used quite a few of her special powers. But Cerylea, the savage, is going to go into action next, and I'm going to use a kick. And that now gets me 3 stunned trolls. And that's all her action points used up, so there's no point in doing anything else that way, using slash dash or anything like that. So now I'm going to see, what do I do with Cerylea. I have 1 troll that is still going to be active. So I'm going to, but that troll's only got 1 hit point. So we move him. Solara takes the troll out of the fight, so I now have 3 stunned trolls who will act, but they won't get to attack anyone. And I should be able to keep them all stunned at this point from the rest of the the rest of the battle, because we're matching them now. We're probably actually beating them on action points, given that we can do some fairly complex interaction with the characters we've got. So Solare's going to come down now. We kick over 2 trolls against the barrel, and that creates a stunned troll. We now have archery powers back into the play again, so we do the push. It doesn't move the troll enough to trigger the overwatch, and it doesn't actually stun the troll, which is a bit of a pity. However, remaining trolls, some of them are on low health, and Cerulea does enough damage. Like, there's a guy with 7 hit points. I could possibly take him out in one go. So we take him out, and Cerulea gets a level up, and we give her the charge, and now I can give her a second action point, which means that I can charge or attack or kick. That gives her 2 action points. As long as I don't move, I can do something offensive. So I use the second kick him out against the balustrade of the bridge, and that stuns him. So I now have 2 trolls stunned, and we're back around to the back of my action. They can't act. Well, they could probably have moved, but they couldn't see anything, I suppose, useful to do, and they decided to stay where they were. Now there's 2 of them left, so we kick them against the rail of the bridge, and we have again 1 stun troll, 1 blinded troll, and the ranger is now completely free to act. Full things. We just take down the ones closest to death, and the ranger was able to do that without spending any action points. So the ranger spends the last action point, triggers overwatch or attack of opportunity from the savage, and that is a very tough fight done. And I think they got 1 effective attack. They got 2 attacks, 1 of which missed because they were blind, and 1 of which hit. So 2 attacks is all they got out of the whole 4 turns? 4 or 5 turns. That is the 3 action point turn, and I look forward to future developments for Triumph, and it's, I suppose, its eventual release, I'd say in the nearish future. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and a share. Feel free to comment or ask questions or anything, and if you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, really helps the channel out. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.